Welcome back to our Senior Professional Development Series. This month, by way of request, we will discuss having tough conversations. For this video, we'll look at some thoughts and techniques from various sources, read other YouTube videos, provide some tips, and during the Thursday discussion, hopefully talk about what has and has not worked for us in the past. When we say having tough conversations in today's context, we mean those talks where we provide feedback on substandard performance and hopefully find a way forward. This can be done in the job or flying performance or based on behavior as a precursor to disciplinary action. Today, we will not be discussing how to administer discipline, which we can save for another day. We will also not cover those tough conversations that deal with grief and loss, emotional or mental issues, or with inebriated people, all of which require specialized discussion or formalized training. So let's jump in. We like to start with why in these videos. Most agree that the purpose of feedback, especially what we like to call negative feedback, is to improve someone's performance. But why? Why do we want people to improve their performance? An altruistic perspective would say that we want people to improve so they can become better, feel better about themselves and their job, increase their sense of worth. We want people to feel that they and their job are important, and it feels good to know that you're good at something. There is a bottom line perspective where we want people to perform better for the company, as it were, increasing the bottom line for the benefit of the organization, its shareholders, and coworkers. Speaking of coworkers, there's also a sort of selfish perspective where you want people to improve so their errors do not cause you or others more work. High-performing people make everyone's lives easier. We'll see in a minute that having tough conversations and doing it right can boost ownership and accountability. High-functioning people take responsibility for themselves and their actions and seek out feedback to ensure they are doing well and improving. This mental and emotional maturity is critical to a high-performing team. If we have members who cover mistakes, shirk responsibility, and blames others for issues, a toxic situation can develop. From there, a team can easily break down due to resentment and a lack of trust, yielding the minimum at best. When we have tough conversations, again, done correctly, we build trust. As aircrew, you know how vital trust is. There are many reasons to trust someone, whether it's a function of formal authority or qualification or relationship. Trust can also be quickly built through honesty, especially in tough talks. We tend to trust most those who will be honest with us about negative performance, who hold us accountable and enforce standards with empathy. All of this leads to growth for us, for other individuals, and for the team. This ultimately translates to all the good stuff: promotions, job opportunities, efficiency, productivity, pride, culture. Hopefully, you're sold on the idea that having tough conversations is a good thing. Now we get into the how. First, we'll discuss how to set yourself up for success when having one of these conversations. And on the next slide, we'll provide a model. So, Joy Baldridge has a TED Talk on YouTube on this topic, and she talks about being flexible and adaptable. To me, this idea is not necessarily for the nuts and bolts of the tough conversation itself, rather a way to prepare our mind for engaging with others. Her point is that people are different and use different types of language, even amongst a group like ours, which is pretty regimented in our linguistics. People react differently to words, And to appeal better to a person, we should know what words, what approach will be most effective for them. This is not unlike knowing if someone is a visual, kinesthetic, or auditory learner, or tailoring lessons to a student. The four categories of people Baldrige describes are social, factual, helpful, and driven. I'm sure you could name some people you know who speak in these terms, and by mirroring them in your speech, you come across more clearly. If the social person speaks in terms of great and amazing, they're generally upbeat, they can be a little over the top or hyperbolic in their language. The factual person is all about being right and tend to be very precise. This person likely relates better to objective criteria, data, and knowing how to get and keep them in the right. A helpful person constantly asks to help. They are empathetic, emotionally aware, and would relate well to you, illustrating how they impact others. Last, the driven person wants to win. They tend to not be expressive. They want to get it done. They like to talk shop and don't have time for extraneous chatter. To get through to them, perhaps keep the talk focused on work. We can build bridges using the other person's words and language. We should also be careful with words. It is possible to be direct without being unnecessarily sharp. Certain language can come across as callous or accusatory, putting someone on the defensive. Phrases like, I noticed and I was wondering are an effective way to broach a topic. Using how can I help can extend a conversation. Really? Used with the correct tone can open up a discussion. Jocko Willink and Leif Babin on the Jocko podcast discussed preparation. According to them, in the teams, role-playing and rehearsal are crucial, even in small tasks. It can seem silly, those small details, but rehearsing them ahead of time can prevent catastrophic missteps on missions. And practicing conversations ahead of time can prevent poorly placed or poorly selected words that can ruin a relationship or have the opposite effect of what was intended. So, on to executing the tough discussion. Many of you are familiar with the SBI model, which seeks to objectively frame the discussion. As you can see in the steps, describe the situation, describe the behavior, describe the impact. It's set up to sound like a one-way discussion. This model does provide context for the person, separates behavior from the individual, and demonstrates the result of that behavior. So done correctly, can strip away emotion and focus on the objective, addressing behavior. The Myron Executive Coach model draws on these basic principles, provides some practicality to create more of a two-way dialogue, and can be used for people throughout the organization or with peers or bosses. So the following is a breakdown of the steps, and if you search for Myron Executive Coach on YouTube, you can find the full presentation. Before starting, recognition is key. How do you know when someone has deviated from acceptable performance or behavior? This should compel some reflection about the clarity of expectations. Have you ever been blindsided by negative feedback, unaware that you've done anything wrong, or been measured against a fuzzy or highly subjective criteria? In the recognition stage, know what the facts and context are. So the first step is to clarify why you're having the talk and do it succinctly. You must be very direct, not emotional, and present only facts. Second, articulate why it is important. Like in the SBI model, this provides weight and context for the person. Third, and this is the crucial step, ask, what are you going to do about it? Period. Don't make it too long or complain about them. After you ask this question, you cannot speak or offer suggestions, as this has nothing to do with you. You're putting the ball in their court, compelling ownership and accountability. This is tough. But like in SEER, this is a battle of wills, not a battle of wits. When they answer, this is where excuses pop up. Ask the question again. If they give a partial solution, reply with, "You can do that. What else can you do?" You can say okay, or keep drilling down depending on how satisfactory their answer is. Lastly, ask, "How can I help you?" Ask this only at the end. Here you have transferred ownership to them, and the talk has become a partnership focused on the solution. The speaker who presented this model likened a person's issues to a monkey. You don't want the person walking into your office and leaving the monkey there. You can inspect the monkey, talk about it, but ultimately the person needs to leave with their monkey, in charge of it, accountable for it, and better suited to take care of it. Many leaders become inundated from all the monkeys people have burdened them with, when the best course is to coach them to care for their own. This four-step model is not just for subordinates. To adjust for issues you may encounter with peers or your boss. Number 3 is you becomes we. What can we do about it? This fosters collaboration and is much more than just throwing a spear. And step number 4, instead of how can I help you, ask how can I personally help or contribute? Again, reinforcing a collaborative relationship. I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about how this applies to our flying. A very simple model used in flight instruction is to identify a deviation during a maneuver or graded item, identify the root cause, then provide an instructional fix. This can be done on yourself as well. While different than the tough conversations we've been talking about, there are parallels in being objective, succinct, helpful, and promoting growth. And I couldn't help but inject some AETC stuff. Poor instructors only point out deviations, and sometimes identify them poorly. For example, that sucked. A better way would be to say, you were consistently 12 knots fast on final, and the standard is to be on speed no more than 10 knots fast. One is vague and emotionally charged, the other objective and grounded. Knowing a deviation happened begs the question, why? This is the root cause. A poor example would be, you suck today. Again, emotionally charged, vague, and associating a person with the behavior. A better way would be to say, rolling out on final, you would shift your aim point long, then when corrected, you would leave power in when you dropped the nose and held it, leading to us getting fast. Notice the subtle drop of the us in there? Lastly is the instructional fix. This can be collaborative, asking the student what they think, or for the sake of time, be prescriptive. A poor example is, suck less tomorrow. A better way would be to say, practice freezing the aim point in the middle of the windscreen as soon as possible. Keep your eyes moving and adjust speed using your power. Here's a power setting that works at that weight to work into your cross-check. The last bit the presenter spoke about was executive presence. Practicing and having these conversations requires a strong but delicate touch. As Lieutenant Colonel Trumbull would say, step on their toes without scuffing their shoes. This executive approach requires a steady body, helping mind, and emotions that are under control. Some steps are make sure criteria and expectations are clearly defined. The first to yell or lose their temper loses. Avoid giving advice. This is the difference between mentoring and coaching. We love to pontificate and show how wise we are, but in these types of situations, the answer has to come from within, or else you'll end up with an office full of monkeys. Use and versus but. Back to the language piece. And builds on a conversation, whereas but is contrarian and can stifle a conversation. Set a comfortable, discreet environment. Nobody likes their dirty laundry aired. Discretion can help someone open up and save face. And lastly, practice and learn from others. This is why we have the Thursday chat, and hopefully we can share some ideas and experiences with each other. I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see y'all on Thursday. Please bring your experiences and questions with you, and we'll have a good talk, and we'll see you.